Everyone is afraid of being alone. They tell you it's a punishment. They tell you that if you don't have a group, a circle, a constant stream of people checking on you, your life is incomplete. That's a lie. The oldest lie you were ever fed. The people who teach you to live in the crowd are the same people who are terrified of silence. They cannot survive alone. So they need you to believe you can't either. Today I'm going to tell you something the good little citizen inside you doesn't want to hear. But the version of you that's been quiet, watching, waiting, that version already knows it. Isolation is not a punishment. It is a weapon. And whoever learns to use it correctly gains a kind of power that the people lost in the crowd will never have. Let's go deeper. Human beings evolved as group animals. For hundreds of thousands of years, your brain has been trained to believe that being alone means danger. In the wild, if you were separated from the group, you became prey. So your brain still rings that same ancient alarm today: don't be alone, or you'll die. But this isn't the wild anymore. The threat today isn't a predator in the grass. The threat today is other people, people who have learned to exploit your fear of being alone for their own benefit. Think about it. Every manipulator, every user, every person who has ever taken advantage of you, succeeded because you needed something from them. You needed their approval, their company, their validation. The moment you need someone that badly, you hand them control over you. That is the entire mechanism of manipulation. It doesn't work on someone who doesn't need you. It only works on someone who's afraid to be without you. That's why the crowd keeps you weak. Not because people are inherently evil, but because dependency creates leverage. And leverage is currency. Every relationship, every friendship, every group you desperately cling to, if you need it to survive emotionally, you've already given away your power. Now here's where the villain mindset separates itself from the herd. A villain doesn't fear solitude. A villain seeks it out. Because in solitude, there is no one to lie to you. No one to manipulate you. No one to distract you from what's actually true. Isolation strips away the noise. And in that silence, you finally hear your own thoughts clearly, maybe for the first time in years. Ask yourself something honest. When was the last time you sat alone, with no phone, no music, no noise, just you and your own mind, and you weren't uncomfortable? If the answer is, I can't remember, that tells you everything. You've been running from yourself. And the people who run from themselves are the easiest people in the world to control, because they'll attach to anyone who makes the silence go away. This is why solitude is not weakness. It is a filter. It separates the people who need you from the people who genuinely want you. It separates the noise from the signal. And most importantly, it teaches you self-reliance. Once you know you can sit in silence and be completely fine, no one can threaten you with the fear of being alone ever again. That fear is the leash most people walk around with their entire lives. Cut it, and you become nearly impossible to manipulate. Think about every historical figure who was labeled dangerous, misunderstood, or ahead of their time. Almost all of them spent extended periods in isolation. Not because they were rejected by the world, but because they chose to separate themselves from it, to think clearly, to build their own philosophy, uncontaminated by the opinions of the crowd. The crowd doesn't produce original thought. The crowd produces consensus. And consensus is comfortable, but it is never powerful. Solitude gives you something the crowd never will: clarity. When you're constantly surrounded by people, you're constantly reacting. Reacting to their moods, their opinions, their validation or lack of it. You're spending your entire life managing other people's emotions instead of building your own mind. Alone, there's nothing to react to. There's only you, and what you choose to build. But let's be precise here, because this is where people misunderstand the philosophy. This isn't about becoming a hermit. It isn't about cutting off every human connection and disappearing into a cave. That's not strength, that's avoidance dressed up as wisdom. True isolation, the villain's isolation, is strategic. It's chosen. It's controlled. You're not running from people because you're scared of them. You're stepping back because you refuse to be dependent on them. There's a difference between loneliness and solitude, and almost nobody teaches you this distinction. Loneliness is when you're alone and it hurts, because you're alone by circumstance, not by choice. You want connection, but you don't have it, and that absence eats at you. Solitude is different. Solitude is when you're alone by choice, and it doesn't hurt at all. It feels like power. Like control. Like finally, no one's voice is louder than yours. Most people never get to experience solitude because they never sit still long enough to find out what it feels like. They fill every silence with noise. A notification. A show playing in the background. A group chat. The moment discomfort creeps in, they reach for distraction. And every time they do that, they reinforce the belief that being alone is something to escape from, rather than something to master. So how do you actually apply this? How do you take a philosophy and turn it into armor you can use every single day? Here are 2 rules. Not suggestions. Rules. Rule number 1, schedule deliberate solitude, and protect it like it's sacred, because it is. This isn't about waiting until you're forced into being alone, after a breakup, after a loss, after everyone's abandoned you. That's reactive isolation, and it usually comes from a place of pain. What I'm talking about is proactive isolation. You choose it. You schedule time, every single day if you can manage it, where you are completely alone, no phone, no background noise, no distractions. Even 20 minutes. Sit with your own thoughts. Let the discomfort come. Don't run from it. The first few times, it will feel unbearable. Your mind will scream for a distraction. That's the addiction talking, the addiction to constant external noise. Push through it. Over time, that discomfort turns into clarity. And that clarity becomes your greatest asset, because you'll start making decisions based on what you actually think, not what you've absorbed from everyone around you. Rule number 2, stop explaining your absence. This is the rule that will change how people treat you, permanently. Most people, the moment they pull back from a group, a friendship, a social circle, feel this desperate need to explain themselves. I've just been busy. I'm sorry I haven't texted back. It's not you, I just needed space. Stop. Every explanation you give is an apology for existing on your own terms. You don't owe anyone a justification for protecting your peace. The people who matter won't need one. The people who demand one were never respecting your boundaries to begin with, they were testing whether you'd cave. Don't cave. Silence is a complete sentence. Use it. Understand something clearly. When you stop explaining yourself, people will call you cold, distant, maybe even arrogant. Let them. Because what they're actually reacting to is the fact that you no longer need their approval to feel whole. And people who built their identity around being needed by you will not enjoy watching you become self-sufficient. That reaction isn't a signal that you're doing something wrong. It's a signal that you're doing something right. Here's the deeper truth most people will never accept. The fear of being alone isn't really about being alone at all. It's about being alone with yourself, and not liking what you find there. That's the real terror. Not the empty room. Not the silent phone. It's the possibility that if you strip away every distraction, every relationship, every source of external validation, what's left might be someone you don't respect. So people avoid solitude the same way they avoid a mirror in a dimly lit room. Not because the room is dangerous, but because they're scared of what the reflection will show them. But here's what changes everything. Once you sit with that discomfort long enough, once you actually face yourself in the silence, you stop being afraid of it. You start building something real. A version of yourself that doesn't need external noise to feel complete. And once you have that, no one can control you through your need for company, because you no longer have that need. You've replaced it with something far more dangerous to anyone who wants to manipulate you: self-sufficiency. This is the villain's advantage. Not cruelty. Not coldness for its own sake. Just complete independence from the crowd's approval. While everyone else is out there, exhausting themselves trying to be liked, trying to fit in, trying to avoid the discomfort of silence, you're building something they can't touch. A mind that answers only to itself. So the next time silence feels unbearable, the next time being alone feels like something's wrong, remember this. It's not wrong. It's just unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things are only uncomfortable until you master them. Master the silence, and you master yourself. And the moment you master yourself, no one, and nothing, can use you again. If you have the courage to face reality, subscribe to Villain POV. If not, go back to sleep.